the West Coast, the East Coast, and deep in the heart of Texas. It's the Geek at Arms podcast with Bryan, Mike, and James.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Geek at Arms podcast, a podcast about three guys who share a lot of geeky hobbies and also a love for the Lord our God. I'm James, and hanging out with me, as always, are my good friends, Bryan and Mike. Bryan, how are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing pretty okay.
Okay.
Not stellar, but everything is kind of on the level right now.
Glad to hear it. Mike, how about you, good sir?
I am feeling really good. So
good.
Yeah. Probably be talking a little about maybe why during the Geek Out, but I'm also just really excited to be with you guys today and talking about what we're talking about today. So
same.
Yay.
It's been a while. It took us a little while to get this one going.
Life has happened. A lot of life.
Yeah. I'm also kind of glad that it did take us a while because in some sense, it allowed me a little bit more rewatch time and research time on this subject, which I really feel is going to help us out in the long run.
Speaking of rewatching, to do a quick shout out to our last episode, either one of you two watch How to Train Your Dragons 2?
I did.
How did you enjoy that?
I liked it quite a lot. There were a couple of places where it's like I wanted it to have gone a different direction, but I could see what they were after, what they were going for. The pain of losing the connection to, now I've suddenly forgotten the dragon's name.
Toothless
was strong. I wish that there had been a little bit more time spent with it, that it happened earlier in the film.
How about you, Mike? Were you able to check it out yet?
I found out through a little bit of research that it wasn't actually about zombie dragons, and I felt so betrayed that I was just done with the franchise.
Fair. Completely fair.
I haven't made it there yet.
Really hoping someone was going to ask me how I'm doing.
How are you doing, James?
I'm healing. I've been a little slow lately because about 2.5 weeks ago, I was walking down some stairs, slippery stairs, slipped, took the last 5 or 6 of them in the air, and I things kind of went slow-mo for a half second, and I had a choice. Am I going to take this on my face or on my feet?
And
I chose my feet.
What did you choose? Okay.
Chose the feet, more specifically my heels, and more specifically my right heel.
Oh, that's a lot of energy focused on one place.
Yeah, well, it was about, I'd say, it was on both heels, more like 80-20. 80% on the right, 20% on the left. And thankfully, I was able to roll before I went down another smaller flight of stairs.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, so I bounced back up and then went right back down because my right foot was completely numb. And I've been healing from that.
Okay.
It bruised up really nice, too. It bruised and swelled up. I did go to the doctor, and he just told me it's a bruised heel.
Okay, that's not good, but better than the alternative.
I wouldn't say bruised heel. It was crush damage is what happened to me. So I think I take 3d6 plus a movement modifier, which I've been feeling that movement modifier. I've been walking around. I've been limpy and gimpy for the past couple of weeks. But
James is at disadvantage.
I am at disadvantage. I'm going to have to roll again. It has, I was really worried because when you start talking about like crush damage and bruising and swelling, I'm like, okay, if I like actually hurt this thing severely, and he goes, oh, no. See, your heel is built to take this type of punishment. The only way we'd be really concerned is if you jumped off a second-story building. I'm like, okay, then.
Don't you shame my other hobby.
You just shout parkour before you do it.
Exactly.
Which actually means bruised spleen in French, I found out. No, it does not. But anyway.
I'm sure there's someone going, that sounds right. But it's just going to take time to completely heal up. It's one of those that it's not serious enough to need like surgery or like a splint or anything, but it's bad enough that it can take like 4 or more weeks to heal up. And thankfully, he also gave me a prescription for painkillers / anti-inflammatory.
Gotcha. Yeah, those bone bruises can do a number on you. So
well, I'm glad he did, because I had been taking like ibuprofen pretty steadily for a week until finally the the knot in my stomach told me, you're not going to take that anymore.
Yeah. That'll happen pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. So, recovering from that, apparently I've reached that age now. I have to think twice before going downstairs.
Yeah.
I was leaving work, and for the first time ever, I'm like, that elevator's starting to look pretty good.
Yeah, I actually took a shot to the face last week and a half ago, I guess.
Ooh, what
myself.
happened?
Well, apparently, in addition to all my other maladies, I now get to add something called orthostatic hypotension to the list, which is that thing where if you stand up suddenly, you get dizzy.
Oh, yeah.
And I got extremely dizzy and fainted. It's like I'm
Oh.
feeling a little wobbly, and the next thing I know, there's a loud noise and my face hurts.
So when you say you took a shot to the face, that shot was the ground.
Yes. And I had a nice, ugly looking rug burn on my forehead for a while. Fortunately, I was at Yolanda and Christian's place when it happened, so there were people there to take care of me.
Actually, I would think that'd be more dangerous because the cats would have been looking at you thinking, if he's on the ground for 2 more minutes, he's fair game.
That cat was in very poor condition. Actually, sadly, that cat died last week. They loved that cat a lot. And it'd been a long time. I mean, she was sick for a while. I actually had to cut that visit short because the cat took a downturn and they just wanted to spend time caring for her.
That makes sense.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. But fortunately, I was there and I had them to, give me the first aid, first of all, and also, a little bit of a, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Reality check on, no, Bryan, you're not dying. You just fainted. Here, let me Google this for you and make sure. So, because if I'd been at home by myself, I'd have totally panicked.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad she was there to give a reality check and also to help.
So I need to get up on the exercise. I got a standing desk now, so I'm not going to be sitting all day, all the time.
Yeah. Is it a stand desk or is it a sit-stand transitional?
It's a sit-stand transitional electric.
Yeah, cool. I am so about the sit-stand transitional. It really helps with my hamstring issues. I'm like, here we are at the Geek at Arms podcast talking about how our aging bodies are failing us. Hooray!
That's kind of
organ recital.
That's kind of what the beginning of this show has turned into. Welcome to this week's maladies.
Yeah, I should probably call my sister and let her know that happened before she hears about it for the first time on the podcast and gets mad at me.
You're going to get such a phone call. You almost died. I find out through your stupid podcast.
Sorry, Danica.
All right. Well, before any more parts of us fall off or just becomes an advertisement on why you should never use WebMD, let's get on to Geek Out. Who wants to go first this episode?
Ooh, can I go first?
Take it away, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this week's Geek Out is fundamentally, if nothing else, about not only just a celebration of geekdom, but also trying to make James jealous. Because while I was on vacation traveling up the Cape is a wonderful place in Massachusetts. We have sharks in the water, coronavirus on the land, triple E in the mosquitoes in the air. I mean, why not go there to die? Anyway,
I gotta tell you, my jealousy is really getting high right now.
But you don't have murder hornets.
Well, as we were, I mean, to cap off all the danger, there was a sign that said sword tacos, and I'm like, yes, we're eating those, and we did, and I have eaten a sword taco, and you have not, and therefore I am the superior swordsman.
But how was it going down? A bit sticky?
Sounds kind of hard on the teeth.
Oh my gosh. No.
Sticky.
Actually, it was one of the best tacos I've ever had. It was swordfish. Since you're right there on the water. So it's swordfish tacos. There are fish tacos, but these weren't fried. These are swordfish steaks that were cut and then seasoned in some mysterious sauce that was drizzled on them, along with pickled onions and jalapenos. And did I mention the sauce that was amazing? And also a fresh salsa on top. And it was the best darn taco I've ever had. So I'm a fan.
Sword tacos, the official food of Geek at Arms.
Pictures to be posted later.
Which surprises absolutely no one who's listened to more than 2 episodes.
I love swords. I love food. This is happening.
It was either that or Tofranes.
I think second on the Let's Make James Jealous is last night. Yeah, I mean, no, that's what this Geek Out is about. Let's be real.
I'm seeing this becoming a new segment of the show. First, we're going to do Geek Out, and then to the future, and finally, Let's Make James Jealous.
But no, seriously. Last night I had an absolutely fabulous time with the guys at City on a Hill. Because what Ryan had done is he had put out a call and just kind of asking asking our friend Mike Perna, the sitting Archduke of Christian gaming nerddom, and had said, "Hey, do you know anybody who runs Numenera?" And Mike Perna was like,
"Yeah,
huh? Do I?" And it turned into a one shot where Mike Perna was running a Numenera game, and it was just fantastic. If you're not familiar with Numenera, it's the far future science fantasy that far future science fantasy considers far future science fantasy. And I knew nothing about this, but thanks to Mike and his appearance on MinMax and walking us through the tutorial component of his game, it was just an amazing time where everyone got their time to shine. And it was really amazing for me because I didn't know anything about the system. And so Mike said, "Hey, do you guys want to make your own characters? Or do you want me to make a character for you?" And I'm like, dude, I do not know this thing. And I didn't say this, but like, I super don't have the bandwidth right now. Please just make whatever character you think will fit in. And he made me a very talky, persuady, charming guy that also works miracles of healing. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is hitting me this is really what I want to do right now. And then I looked at his weapons list and it's a rapier and dagger. And I'm like, I love you, you wonderful, wonderful man.
Knows his audience.
You get me. You really get me.
I felt like that. Yeah. And it was, I don't want to spoil anything, but there were just a few moments where Mike was looking at us and like, wait a minute, I have this ability and it can do this, right? And we can use this to just bypass that, right? And he's like, honestly, I did not see that coming. And there were a few of those moments where it's like, okay, here is this coming up. And so he's like, wait a minute, here's this idea. Can we just this? And I was like, wow, yeah, I guess that just happened. And so I don't know if this is going to be out already when this episode comes out, but do check out City on a Hill for Mike Perna's Numenera game. It was fantastic. Great GM, wonderful host, Ryan, great guy, and just a fabulous group to play with.
See, Mike talked up the Numenera game and the Cypher system back when he was on the show in Geek at Arms episode 24.
Because that was right after the Kickstarter, wasn't it?
Yes. And listening to his interview as of this moment, the latest episode of MinMax, I'm man enough to admit when I'm jealous. I am. Because the whole concept of we're currently in the first age of man or the first age of this planet, and Numenera takes place after the 9th age, where technology has progressed to the point that it's basically magic. That just sounds like so much fun. I look forward to the day that hopefully I can either sit across from the table or across from the video screen from Mike Perna for one of his games. I mean, it just sounds like an absolute blast.
Well, and I'll say that James isn't the only one that's jealous. And when Mike put out his call for players, I'm just like, everything in me was restraining myself because I saw that you were already on the list. I'm like, and Ryan's had me on that show for like 3 other things. I shouldn't be greedy, but I really, really want to play in that game. But I restrained myself. It was physically painful to do so.
I don't want to rub it in, but I also do want to say it was just a fantastic group. Just really kind of the social dynamics worked out so amazingly that it was just a phenomenal experience to be a part of.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Also, gaming related, have either of you heard of a game called Sleeping Gods?
No.
Neither have I.
It was a Kickstarter a while back. It's kind of a campaign in a box sort of thing. It's got the components of a board game, but it's not a board game. I mean, it is a board game, but it's more than a board game. It's I think they say 1 to 20 hour experience to explore this world. The idea is that you're on a ship in the 1920s, I believe on its way from Hong Kong to New York, and you are caught up in some sort of otherworldly experience where you're transported to this group of islands in a realm where magic and mystery and gods are very real. And you are told that you must wake the gods in order for them to send you home. And so it has this very, I suppose, Voyage of the Dawn Treader and Odyssey-esque feel, where you're on this steamship or diesel ship, one of the 1920s. So it'd be a diesel ship to try to find these artifacts and these totems that you need in order to complete your task of getting home. But there's a huge, thick, spiral-bound booklet of experiences that you can have on all these many, many islands as you're flipping through this flip book of the world map. And so each location you go to is like, well, item 53. Well, look at Island 53 in your book, and you have 53.12357 that are different encounters that you can have depending on what quests you've gathered, what quests you've completed, and what items you've gathered along the way. So it has a very open world exploration type feel with a crunchy but elegant combat system that makes you feel challenged but doesn't make you feel bogged down when you're in either individual combat or when you're in ship challenges or crew challenges. And it's really interesting in that when you have skill checks, the thing that you want to do can always happen. But if you fail, you do the thing. If something requires, say, a cunning of 6, if you're only able to muster a cunning of 4, the thing that you wanted to do happens, but also you have a cost, whether that be your ship takes damage or your character takes damage or you are afraid or you take strain. So there's always a way forward. You can never get yourself cornered where you can't get out of a situation. It's just how much does it cost for these things to happen? And we've been playing it on weekends, and it's been an amazing experience, and it's been a great way for me and my friends to try to explore this Odyssey-esque world. So you can pre-order copies of it. It's not on store shelves, but it's pricey, but it's a huge campaign in a box, and I highly recommend.
I like it when our Geek Outs run kind of, well, not so much parallel, but similar, because I recently also kickstarted a game called The Dueling Fops of Vendemir. It's a new game put out by known game designer Greg Stolze. It is a no GM procedurally generated tabletop role-playing game. Ooh. All about these spoiled, aristocratic, overly privileged, entitled, hyper-violent people. Just the best people, They're great. Without going too deep into it, it's very simple. There are 4 stats that you base your rolls off of: foppish, serious, duelist, and aristocrat.
I'm just imagining this is, I'm foppish, I'm angry, and I'm armed.
So while I was reading about the game, I was thinking, a friend in the SCA pointed it out to me, And I'm like, oh, this sounds like so much fun, but I really do not need to be kickstarting anything else right now. And then I read it's going to be released as a PDF and it only costs $10. And yes, I'm hitting the back button so hard right now.
Oh, wow, that sounds a lot more moderate than what I did with the Avatar RPG. Okay, anyway.
So I didn't mean to jump into your Geek Out, but I just wanted to share that I'm looking forward to getting that PDF, hopefully in January, which is weird to say is not that far off.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, is that these GM-less systems that offer the ability to scratch that RPG itch without having to have all the super prep really is an appealing opportunity.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't love the narrative experience with your friends? And sometimes it's hard to get that prep together, or to find somebody who wants to GM long term. So these are great opportunities.
Yeah.
The final thing on my Geek Out is, have either of you seen the Masters of the Universe TV show?
Oh, on Netflix?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I have not.
Okay. So just as a warning to listeners, if you haven't seen this and you don't want it spoiled, like it is, if you haven't had it spoiled already, it's been out for like a month or two since the time we've been recording. There's going to be a spoiler, so you might want to skip forward a bit till you hear James's voice.
If you've listened to this podcast and have not watched it yet, are you really listening to the right podcasts?
I mean, well, like on some level, like at first when it says Masters of the Universe, I was really kind of skeptical, because I'm like, okay, you either need to go full out one way or the other, go full on story centric and make this fundamentally about the story, or make it such a cash grab catastrophe that you don't have to take it seriously. Like, please do one of those things. Like, really, really great, really, really awful, nothing in the middle. That's what we're aiming for.
I was expecting the nostalgia cash grab, but when I read that it was being held by Kevin Smith, I held out a little bit of hope.
Yeah, he understands geek properties and he does like story. So when I saw his name attached to it, I was like, oh, that's a thing. Of course, I didn't see his name attached to it until episode 2 when I was actually really watching. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Because here's where the serious spoiler alert, like we told you, but now it's happening. The fact that it's called Masters of the Universe and not He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is telling, because this is really about a post He-Man world. When I was watching this, is my youngest said, okay, it's going to be awful, let's turn this on. And we watched the first episode and it's like, okay, yeah, this is showing us that they understand the property, that they knew what the legacy was, and they made it like super kind of cheesy at the start. And then there was a point in which Moss Man is standing up to Skeletor, and Skeletor just torches Moss Man and he's dead.
He nukes him.
And I was looking at my family and I said, that was bold. And they're like, what? Why? And I'm like, no, that was a toy. That was a toy that I loved for no real reason other than this was, part of my childhood. And they just offed him. And then Mark Hamill, yes, as Skeletor, was like, let this be our final battle. I'm like, oh my gosh, they just warned us. They're going to kill them both. And like, no. And then they did.
My jaw dropped when a certain moment came and Skeletor, wheezing and coughing up blood, says, you finally used that sword the way it was meant to be used.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, and, I really had to respect the series that they were like, okay, if you're willing to kill off both He-Man and Skeletor, then I'm really interested in what you're doing with this property. And season 1 was really Tila's story. And I thought that was a fantastic call. And what do you do in a, oh no, magic is dying, post He-Man, post Skeletor world?
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed in the season finale that they felt the need to bring both of them back. I was really hoping that once they got to their version of heaven And like, oh, Prince Adam is here. I'm still not over you lying to me for how long of our lives. And when he said, oh, I'll come back with you, I really wanted her to just shove him back into heaven and say, no, I had to deal with this once. I've dealt with it. You don't. This is no longer about you. You're done. But I would love to have seen that moment. But, we got something else, which is fine.
Besides what they did with Tila's story, how they treated the characters of Evil Lynn, making her much more three-dimensional, and especially Orko.
Yeah.
They took him from literally a floating punching bag,
yep,
to someone with heart, and that you really, really...
I wanted him to have more screen time.
Yeah, you identify with him. And when his big moment comes, it's such an emotional gut punch.
Yeah. So will I tune in for season 2? I don't know. I thought season 1 up until like the last few minutes of season 1, I was like, yeah, I'm super on about this.
The ending did not surprise me though, because was it a bold direction they took? Did they bring back He-Man? Did they leave us on a humongous cliffhanger at the end, though? Yeah. But he's, for all intents and purposes, he's still the face of the franchise. So
yeah,
I don't see them going so bold as to take him out permanently. I might be wrong, though. I might be wrong, and I'll be pleasantly surprised if I am. I can tell you this, of all the characters who stay and of those who don't survive, I told myself, okay, if Man-at-Arms bites it, I'm out. I'm dropping it right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it would have been interesting to see Tila being the next champion. Like, okay, you're the next one who summons the power of Grayskull.
Because they established that women have done it in the Eternian heaven.
Yep.
So
we never did get her name, did we? Or did we? Maybe we did. I don't know.
I don't recall.
Yeah, I mean, her lines were not all that memorable. They were in some, like, we had the subtitles on, and it says, speaking alien language. I'm like, that's fantastic. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting experience. I'd recommend checking out, just seeing how they navigate the post He-Man world in that first season.
Agreed.
And that'll wrap up my Geek Out. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
I was just gonna say that'll wrap up my Geek Out, but if you've got He-Man comments, then
nope, I am He-Man'd out for right now. So we'll go from one fantasy swordsman to the next. In the last episode, I talked about that I had jumped back into the Witcher books, and at that time I was just beginning to read book 2. I am now getting very close to finishing up book 7.
Wow, I did not know they wrote that many.
Yeah, apparently there's one more after this one. So I wasn't aware as well, but I realized, okay, I'm in for the long haul apparently. But thankfully Joy read them right along with me, so I could justify, the purchases on my Kindle. And they're not that expensive. They're not small books. They're not huge either. They're not like Tad Williams size novels.
Very few things are.
Yeah. But they're not little novellas either. I'd say they're about 300, 400 pages. So, typical length. But I've just been grinding through them. Like, I want to see where this story goes and what happens to these characters, especially because I already got emotionally attached to these characters after having played The Witcher 3. And these books have just been really enjoyable. Book 1, the storytelling is a little disjointed, but it gets much better from book 2 on.
Yeah, practice makes perfect, right?
It does. And I would recommend them to anyone. Without meaning to, a lot of what I've been focused on geek-wise has kind of turned to The Witcher. It's just I've been encountering things. Like not long ago, I was checking out what games were for sale on Xbox, and they had The Witcher 2, and it was on sale for $3. I'm like, okay, $3. I'll grab it. I'll play it when I can.
That sounds like a purchase that's hard to go wrong.
Yeah, played it a bit, and like it's an older generation game, but it's still really good looking, and it's been very enjoyable. The voice acting's been fantastic.
I mean, if you're looking for somebody to look down on older generation of games, you're talking to the wrong dude. I still play Mega Man 2. So.
How is the voice acting in Mega Man 2, by the way?
I don't need this from you, James.
But speaking of enjoyable RPGs, which we've done a lot already in this podcast, just on a whim, I thought I would look up to see if anyone ever made one for the Witcher universe. And I was expecting to find like someone had adapted it from GURPS or something, or just Roll20 and written their own rules out into a PDF. But no, lo and behold, there is an official Witcher RPG book and several expansions for it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, from Talsorian Games. Came out a few years ago, and it takes a lot of its content from both the games and the books. And from what I've read so far, it's got really decent reviews. So one day I might check it out. The core rulebook goes for under $40 on Amazon, so that's not horrible.
I mean, that's not horrible for 1998. So, I mean, core rulebooks have been, I mean, they're small runs. They're usually high production value. To get one for between $50 and $75 is pretty commonplace these days.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I said, there are a lot of expansions for it. Lords and Lands expansion, DM Screen, A Book of Tales, A Witcher's Journal, Rise of the Witcher. So maybe one day I'll get it. I'll leaf through it and dream about the day I can actually play at a table, with friends around again.
Yeah, there's that.
But moving on, recently Joy and I have actually had the opportunity to go see movies. The great thing about having family move down here is that we have that ability now to just, I won't say dump the kids, but I really do mean dump the kids. Recently, Joy and I celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. And thankfully, my parents very kindly watched the kids, so we actually spent a day together. And we ended it by going to go see the Ryan Reynolds movie, Free Guy.
Oh, how was that?
It was Ryan Reynolds as his Ryan Reynoldiest.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable. It's basically PG Deadpool without the red suit.
Does not compute.
It's the Matrix as a comedy.
Yeah.
See, it's one of those things that I looked at. I'm like, this looks like a fantastic concept. I would gladly watch 28 minutes of that.
It was enjoyable. As a video game movie, concept has not always translated to the screen very well. We've seen several examples of this in the past. This one was fun. The acting was great. Ryan Reynolds stood out. Taika Waititi. He plays the movie's antagonist, and he's just so much fun to watch. I enjoyed it, and it's always fun to watch Ryan Reynolds just be himself. I mean, just you can tell when he's just kind of ad-libbing stuff. Like he takes a lick of bubblegum ice cream, and he's like, oh, "It's like my tongue had a baby with a sunset." I'm like, I wonder how many takes they had to do with that.
That was the first take.
That probably was. So I'd recommend it. It was enjoyable.
I really need to back up. I was going to let it slide, and I said I'm not going to let it slide. When you said that video game to movie adaptations tend to, and then you started to say something negative, and I absolutely have to defend Super Mario Brothers is hold on. I have to defend Retro Rewind podcast as labeling Super Mario Brothers as a tragic film. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. All right, fantastic.
Okay, gotcha.
Moving on. All right.
Moving on.
I think they finally got it right when they started not adapting actual video games, but like Wreck-It Ralph. Like, okay, we're just going to ignore video game as a framework, but we're not going to try and make a video game into a movie.
Right.
That works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The last thing I'll say about Free Guy is that somehow Ryan Reynolds, he decided to do a little movie review of it as Deadpool, sitting on a couch next to Korg from Thor Ragnarok, and Korg, of course, being voiced by Taika Waititi.
I saw
and them together watching like a trailer for Wreck-It Ralph and commenting. And I'm like, one, this actually happened. And two, this is hilarious.
I mean, I don't know whose idea that was, but if that was the best idea to come out of this movie, still a win.
Exactly. And of course, everyone on the internet is screaming, it's like, Deadpool is with an actual Marvel character. He's going to be in the Marvel movies. Yay. And I'm like, people, just appreciate this for what it is. Let's just enjoy this 2.5 minutes of happiness that YouTube is giving us.
Like, look, you are witnessing art, and that's where you go.
Finally, for my last bit of Geek Out, it's my turn to make someone on this podcast possibly jealous.
Oh, no.
I didn't say it was you, Mike. But it is you, Mike.
Oh. All right, let's hear it.
That might be both of you. I don't know. But before school started for the kids, we decided to take them on an actual vacation. You know, we've taken them to go see family, but this time we wanted it to be somewhere that was like a traditional vacation. You know what I mean?
An experience.
Yes. So we took them down to the coast and we went to Galveston. And they had a lot of fun playing on the beach. It was a great experience. I'd not been to the coast in decades, and they'd never been. So we did that on day one, had a great time. Day two, I wanted to do something different. I mean, we could have gone to the beach again, but I was feeling a little sandblasted. So I thought, let's do something else new. What is there to do around Galveston? Some things sound fun. Some things I know sound fun to me, but the kids aren't going to enjoy. And wait a minute, let me look up on my phone. What about this place? And oh, hey, NASA is exactly 30 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the family to NASA.
Oh, that sounds nice. You son of a half-full rat-eating lunch bucket.
Hey. We've already had one explicit show last week with that kind of language.
Oh, no, seriously, though, that sounds amazing.
It was phenomenal.
What did you guys get to see? I mean, like, how much of it was, like, seriously, how much of it was open with COVID and all that? What could you see?
Okay, it was completely open, and so I don't know what I was expecting. I mean, I went into it not knowing anything about what they had available and what was, like, kid-friendly or what was, like, available to just tourists. You know, you pay to get in, obviously, like you do everything.
Right.
But when you walk in, it is... Okay, have all three... Actually, no, I know Bryan and I have. Mike, I know you have not ever been to the Kansas Cosmosphere.
Really?
No.
That's extraordinary.
I know. Okay, look, here's the thing. Like, I always wanted to go to the Kansas Cosmosphere, and something always, you know, when you live there and it's right there, you know, there's always like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, I'll do it next time. And until, you know, you're moving to Boston and you never do.
Gotcha. So when you drive up in the parking lot, the first thing that greets you is the 747 with the USS Independence on the top of it.
Wow.
Did I tell the story on the podcast about when they flew the space shuttle into LA?
No.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. It was while I was still working at that stereo conversion company, and the CEO had taken me to the Warner Brothers lot to try and sell our services to somebody there. And we're standing in the parking lot when the 747 with Atlantis comes by, and it flies right behind the Warner Brothers, the water tower, you know, where Yakko, Wacko, and Dot are. So
I'm
it's like,
very
it's just
scared for the space shuttle.
Yeah, I wish I had a camera to take a picture of it, because it's just a great thing. And this woman looks up at it and she says, "Wow, it looks just like a spaceship."
Well, I mean, she's not wrong.
No, it looks exactly like a spaceship, ma'am.
All right, so it was the Independence on top of the 747, and that's just outside the door. And once you get in, there are dozens of displays and things to interact with for kids, for adults, talking about the history of spaceflight, history of NASA, current technologies being researched, what astronauts have to go through training-wise to become astronauts, what's in store for the future.
What's in store for the future? We have billionaires leading space programs. The Expanse. The Expanse is what's in the future.
They also had a giant life-size model of Skylab. You can also sign up. It's included in the price of the ticket. You just have to sign up for it. You can take a tram ride, and you can either choose to go to the original mission control.
Oh, my.
Or you can go to the astronaut training area and view that along with the Saturn V rocket. Wow. Which is a giant building it's housed in. It's on its side. And words cannot describe to you the sheer size of this thing. I mean, I took a lot of pictures of it, and they don't do it justice. It is mind-bogglingly huge. But you can actually also go up inside of the 747 and the Independence, and it just was such a fun day.
That sounds awesome.
Is Joy as much of an astronaut now as she used to be?
Oh, yes. Just as much. She was in heaven.
See, I think I would go on that trip just to listen to Joy's enthusiasm for the day.
Yeah.
What was enjoyable was taking that. Now, the tram itself is boring. It's a boring, Houston, Texas day. You're just riding along. The tour guide is, in that building, they do this. In that building, they do that. And the things he's talking about are really fun sounding. And the buildings are just so utterly gray and boring. So, but Joy was trying to fill in one or two of the kids with some knowledge that she had. And I just found it enjoyable to listen to her. Just what tidbits she had at the drop of a hat about different parts of NASA's history and space flight. So, yeah, go to NASA. It's fun. And I will be taking the family again once the kids are a little older. I mean, they had fun, but I think that especially the boys, they'll appreciate it more once they're just a bit older. And that will wrap it up for my Geek Out.
Oh, well, I guess that leaves it to me then. Well, I started compiling these notes when we were going to do this thing like 3 weeks ago, so they're a little stale. But recently, meaning 3 weeks ago, they dropped the first teaser trailers for Y the Last Man. And I think I mentioned before that we're working on Y the Last Man.
Very cool.
And the trailers, it's like, this has actually been a new experience for me because usually, I do a lot of work, and if my work makes it into the trailer at all, it's like just a few frames. But this one was like, that's my shot. Oh, wait, gosh. That's my shot too.
Okay, so I've actually seen the trailer. Can you give me like any specifics?
Okay, so there's the one that I worked on the longest was there's this tractor trailer truck laying on its side and it's covered in snow. Mm-hmm. And you see the main female character, like, you can't tell it's her because it's so far away, but she's trudging across through the snow. It's like, so the road was completely, it was a road. So I put snow on the road and I put snow on the side of the truck because they wanted to completely cover the side of the truck and it didn't have enough snow. And then of course, putting some fake trees in between to sandwich it so that you couldn't tell that there was work done there, and putting the power lines back over the top. I'm trying to remember what else was in it. There's the big aerial shot where you're looking down and the streets are making the shape of a Y. That was one of our shots. There's one where you're looking up at Yorick, and there's this. You don't actually notice it in the shot that was there, but I happen to know that there's a CG helicopter, very blurry in the background behind him.
Now, is Yorick the last man, or is he the monkey?
He's the last man. The monkey's name is Ampersand.
Of course it is.
Yeah, the monkey is being done entirely by ILM, and we're doing just like kind of random stuff. We're doing actually a lot of interiors of the Pentagon because they've got the set of the Pentagon, but it's not, the hallways aren't long enough, so we're extending the hallways. Was the house explosion in the trailer? I think it was.
That sounds familiar.
We did the house explosion.
So you were going in hoping that something of yours maybe got a half second, but instead the trailer became your new sizzle reel.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like, no, this is just, we just put a Muse logo on it, and that's our work.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I was pretty excited about that.
Very cool. Now, when is that supposed to be released again?
I think it starts airing sometime in September.
And what streaming service was it?
I don't know if it'll be immediately on a streaming service. It's going to be on FX.
Oh, okay, FX.
It'll be on cable.
Gotcha.
Cable's
still a thing?
cable is still a thing. You know, people over 70 still use it. It may show up on Hulu if you've got the premium Hulu account week of, but I'm not sure. We're still continuing to work on it. I think we're working on the 9th episode. I'm not entirely certain how many episodes are in the season.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Looking forward to that coming out.
And I had mentioned in the past that I've been playing in a D&D game with Peter Martin of Saving the Game.
Oh, how's that going?
Well, actually, he put that game on hiatus because it got a little bit too big for him to handle. I don't think that he was really appreciating the fact that I was trying to engage with it on a political level, and he wanted to do dungeon crawls.
Oh, no.
Bryan, stop trying to bring liberty to the masses. We're just in town to buy supplies.
Well, I talked the Pirate Queen into becoming a client state of our empire. That was kind of fun.
That's a thing.
I don't have notes for this. Said every GM every game.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, but he had been contributing to that Level Up project. It's kind of like Pathfinder's. As Pathfinder was to 3rd edition, Level Up is to 5th edition.
Gotcha.
And that's going to be kickstarting again next month in September sometime, maybe October. And he did substantial contributions to it. He wrote a lot of the multi-classing rules. He wrote some monster descriptions, several other things that he mentioned that I have now forgotten because it's been 3 weeks since I was planning on talking about it. And I did not refresh myself as I should have. Anyway, so I'm really looking forward to finally getting that stuff in my hands and being able to resume that game. Actually, one of the other players is going to be running Monster of the Week for us in the interim, which I have never played a Powered by the Apocalypse game, so I'm really looking forward to that.
I've got that rule book. I've wanted to play that game for a long time.
It's been on my short list of things that I wanted to try. And we're going to do we're all retired monster hunters living in the same retirement home when something happens.
Oh, that's amazing.
So my character is going to be kind of a cross between Oscar from The Odd Couple and Bobby Singer from Supernatural.
I was imagining you were going to say Oscar from Sesame Street, but yeah, do go on.
And he's a member of one of those. It's kind of poking fun at groups like the Golden Bough, these spiritist cults that claim to have secret mystical knowledge but actually don't. And so it's his group claims to be a medieval hermetic society that actually originated sometime in the 1920s. So he's the guy that knows, and I'm just imagining him, he's brewing some kind of something in his cauldron in his room, and he's trying to keep the nurse from coming in and seeing what he's doing.
I'm imagining in my weird little mind, it's a combination of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the movie Red with Bruce Willis.
Exactly. Yes. That is exactly what we're going for.
Dude, I want to play this game. Bryan, get me in this game. You got to get me in this game, dude.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And
I just want to roll up John Malkovich's character.
So if you want to be John Malkovich, that's a different movie.
Well done.
Nice. Yeah, so that should be a lot of fun in the interim before Peter can start up his Level Up game. And he says that they have the layouts and everything pretty much done. And so the day that the Kickstarter ends, they'll have PDFs, available.
Wow.
And printed books will obviously take a bit longer. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that one on Kickstarter because they will definitely deliver and they'll have materials immediately. And I actually added one because as James was talking about The Witcher, I remembered, hey, wait, I'm reading something too. And as you know, I'd been going back and trying to get a little bit grounding in the classics of science fiction and fantasy from the 30s through the 70s. And I realized, I've never read any Jack Vance. And since Gary Gygax was a big Vance fan and a lot of Dungeons and Dragons is based on Vance's work, I thought, I'm going to read The Dying Earth, find out what this is about.
How have you been enjoying it?
I have not been. I like my fantasy heroic. You know, I like good versus evil. I like big stakes. And the Dying Earth is very, very, I wouldn't call it low fantasy because it's got a lot of the high fantasy trappings, like earth-shattering sorcery, that kind of thing. But the main character in most of these books, he's called Kujal the Clever, and he is a scoundrel. And not a scoundrel with a heart of gold. He's a person who, all of the bad things that happen to him, he's earned them. He's not a good guy. And the longer I read about him, like, I really just want this guy to not win. Like, the person he's trying to get vengeance on is no better, but I don't want either of them to win. So it's like, this is not scratching the itch that I want for my fantasy.
You want the real hero to step in and give them both their comeuppance.
Exactly, yes. I think my favorite character so far has been this, like, muscle, like, clam person who played a joke on him.
Wow. You know, when you said that the character was the muscle, I had a very different vision in my head than how that sentence actually ended. So I'm impressed.
That's why I was like kind of tripping over how to express it. She was a muscle, not like a muscle person. She was a clam, a bivalve.
Well, now I'm a little more into this, but anyway.
You know, I felt the same way as you, Brian. I came across the book A Canticle for Leibowitz.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's classic, well-known science fiction. And I started, reading about the subject matter. And at first I'm like, oh, that sounds fascinating. And then I read a little more. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be in a good mood after I finish reading this book.
Yeah.
It's probably really good. I don't think it's for me. I'm going to give it a pass.
Yeah, I remember my experience reading the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever, which Thomas Covenant is a modern man with leprosy who gets transplanted into this fantasy world and is found by a young woman who immediately applies this magic mud to him and cures his leprosy. He thanks her by raping her.
Whoa.
This is in the opening chapters of the first book.
Whoa.
That's not what I was expecting.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for letting me know to stay away from that then. Much appreciated.
Don't read those. We're going to be talking about redemption story arcs later. And Covenant is an example of one where he does eventually kind of atone for his bad behavior, but he is not somebody that I wanted to spend that many books with, and I'm rather shocked that I read all 6 of them. And I understand there's actually a third Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, and I'm not interested at all in reading that. I really need my fantasy to be heroic to enjoy it.
Yeah. Seriously, appreciate it. Bivalve character had me interested. Other thing has me hard pass.
Yeah, Jack Vance doesn't get that bad, fortunately.
Okay.
Okay. Not Thomas Covenant.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, you were thinking those are the same thing?
I thought they were different books in the same series. So.
No, the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant is by Stephen R. Donaldson. And I read those when I was 13 or 14, I guess. My dad had them. And I had this, but I'm just comparing the experiences of reading these books to those. It's like, I read the Thomas Covenant Chronicles and bleh. And then I read this one and it's a similar kind of bleh. So my conclusion is I need my heroes. I need somebody to admire in my fantasy fiction.
I get that completely.
And that pretty well wraps up my Geek Out too.
Well, all right. Well, as Brian alluded to just moments ago, in this episode, we are going to be talking about redemption stories. And
I wanted to start off by asking us collectively what we mean by redemption stories, because the capital R redemption means a little something different to us as Christians than it does to culture at large.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is your understanding as what it means to the culture at large?
I think most of the time when you say, hey, this is a redemption story, what most people, if they're not thinking about the term literally, are going to say, oh, well, this is about a bad person who becomes good.
Yeah.
In its best forms, it's this is about somebody who's atoning for their past bad deeds. And in the worst cases, it's simply the heel face turn where I was bad, but now I'm good for some inexplicable reason. And everybody just kind of ignores the fact that I used to commit genocide.
Yeah. It's funny because the initial thing when we were coming up with this topic, I had a bunch of names. I was thinking, oh yeah, we have this redemption story from this person and this person. And the more I thought about it, the fewer of those characters were actually fitting exactly what I thought as, a really good redemption arc. I think that for me, the best redemption arc would be one where an antagonist was pursuing goals that were destructive to either themselves, the world in general, or both. And then through some encounter realizes that they were on the wrong path and then seeks to undo the harm that they were doing, both to the world and to themselves, and then makes some effort to make things right. And I'm not sure that is exactly the capital R redemption story. I mean, I'm certainly there's parallels, but I think that that's what I want out of a redemption story that I'm watching. I think.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, I think when we as Christians talk about redemption, the important thing is that we're looking at Christ, who is not a character who is himself being redeemed, but he is the Redeemer. He's the one who's sacrificing something to make us the sinner, to justify us. So there's an exterior force involved. And we don't see that very often. I've got a couple of examples that I'll talk about later on, but I just wanted to point out that when we talk about a redemption story, we're not talking about the Christ-like redemption that we read about in the Bible. We're talking more about an atonement story.
For me, the first place my mind goes is Paul, because that in my mind has always been the ultimate example of a redemption story. And we know the story of Saul. We know who he was. We know all of the horrible things he did. And we know about his road to Damascus and how he became Paul and how he spent the rest of his life living for Christ.
And I think that is like fundamentally what Bryan was talking about, is that here you have the exterior action of the divine on and in this person. And that person responds with an effective change.
Right, because the road to Damascus wasn't Paul looking at it or Saul looking at himself and saying, hey, I'm a horrible person. The experience at Damascus was Jesus appears in front of him and says, hey, dude, stop persecuting me.
Yeah, you're kind of a horrible person.
Like,
cut it out.
Wait, who are you? Oh.
Yeah, oh.
So do we want to get into the specifics of the stories that we want to talk about?
I think we should.
Yep.
I think the first one that ever really comes to my mind is Star Wars. And that was like the very first redemption story, because I had this very profound reaction to Return of the Jedi when I was a kid. Like, Vader finds an emotional anchor in his son, and through his son he finds what's good within him, and he can't stand idly by and let his son be killed. So he sacrifices himself to save his son. And I'm like, okay, that's when he switches to the good side and ultimately pays a major price to do the right thing.
I can remember seeing Return of the Jedi as a young kid, and the concept of a bad guy, because I was young enough that's how characters in films and TV shows were. Those were my categories: good guys, bad guys. And the idea of a bad guy doing something other than being a bad guy was completely and utterly foreign to me. And this was the first example of any type of redemption I had ever seen on screen. And the first two Star Wars movies does a great job of establishing the character of Darth Vader. He is scary. He is a nightmarish force of nature.
Yeah.
Which also is the best part, or one of the best parts of Rogue One, with that hallway scene. Like that's the original trilogy Darth Vader in a nutshell. To quote Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. But when we get to Return of the Jedi, when Vader finally interacts with Luke, with his son, we begin to hear changes in his voice. We begin to see cracks in the monolith that is Vader. Luke says several times, "There is still good in you. I can feel it." And you can almost get the sense he's wearing his father down.
Yeah. I mean, in the scene when he departs, his father is actually leaning on, on the rail, like, kind of this moment weighed on him.
And when Luke is like, one final plea, there's a pause, and Vader, with this resigned tenor to his voice, "It is too late for me, my son." Mm-hmm. I'm like, wait, is that regret? Is that sorrow we hear in his voice? And those small moments help set the stage for the final battle. Yeah. For when Vader is, once again, a choice is put in front of him. What is he going to do? On one hand, he has the place he's held for the past 20 some odd years, beside the Emperor, serving his master, continuing to live with the choice that he made decades ago. Or he has in front of him his son, writhing and in pain, calling out to him, "Father, please." And then you hear your master say, "Now, young Skywalker, you will die." And it's such a powerful moment. The music swells as Vader finally, he's made so many mistakes. He's, ever since cutting off Mace Windu's hand and letting the dude get blown out a window, he's pretty much made all the mistakes for years. And finally, he has one more choice put before him. He makes the decision, and he decides to save his son. He picks Palpatine up, takes the brunt of the attack, hurdles Palpatine from on high over the rail, and it made an impression on young James.
I mean, I think that the reason why it made such an impression is that when you have a franchise, generally the narrative is how is good going to, with might, defeat evil. Like that's the narrative we're buying into. Mm-hmm. One time I was joking with a friend who'd never seen Star Wars. And so I showed her the first movie and I said, "Oh, and spoiler alert, we go through 2 more movies. And in the end, Darth Vader decides what he's doing is wrong. And he decides not to do it anymore." And, she just laughs. It's like, "Ha, yeah, right. Luke kills him." And then, walks off. And it's because that's not the way that we tell stories. And I think that's what made this story fantastic, is that this was the narrative, that there was something that could flip in, the most powerful evil force of nature. Yeah. And inside, he's a human being who is Anakin Skywalker, and he is in the end gonna do finally the right thing.
On a quick side note, I just want to say, when the remastered special editions came out all those years ago, I was so looking forward to seeing them in theater, and we got to Return of the Jedi, and when that great moment came, and I heard Darth Vader go, "No, no, no," I'm sitting in theater going, "What the crap is this?" I absolutely hated that it was added. They were unnecessary. It was almost comical the way it sounded, and it completely robbed the scene of the emotional gut punch that it evoked.
Yeah, it really undercut the drama, for sure. Vader's atonement's very brief. I mean, and this is a trope that we see a lot in these kinds of stories, that atonement equals death. I think that's the name of it on TV tropes. He makes his one choice and then he dies, because that's narratively necessary. He killed a lot of people. He has to die at the end. Mm-hmm. And so we don't really get to spend a whole lot of time with his emotional journey, really just the elevator ride and then the fight.
Yeah.
And that actually is one of the things that makes me appreciate the prequel trilogy a little bit, that we get some context and some depth for Darth Vader when we realize that his fall to the dark side was driven by his fear of losing his family. From the very beginning, Yoda's telling him, you fear losing your mother, and this is your path to the dark side. And then we get all the way to the end of Return of the Jedi, and it's his fear of losing his son that brings him back. And I think we can pick that up even as early as The Empire Strikes Back, when Palpatine's telling him, well, you've got to kill young Skywalker. And he's like, do I really have to? Can I look for a way to save him?
Yeah. He could be a powerful ally.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that wasn't the point of the script at that time. Mm-hmm. Although, I don't know, maybe Lucas was looking a little bit further forward. But if we choose to read it in, we can see that note of love even in that scene. And that's how I choose to read it anyway.
Yeah, this is one of the things that when we're talking about the redemption of these characters, I mean, back to the redemption equals death. Like, we still, maybe it's a cynical kind of justice that we demand to see the bad guy die. Like, even if the hero doesn't kill him, at least he's still dead in the end. And being that's a Hollywood movie, not a 12-book epic, we don't really have the kind of time it would take. But if we look at the sequel trilogy, I was watching it and kind of wondering what would happen, because we get to see Ben, make some choices. And part of me was like, wow, I would love to see if Ben comes back alive to the Resistance and had to hash out what happened with all of his newfound allies. I wanted to see that we get back to camp moment.
Yeah, I think we had a brief conversation on Twitter recently to that effect. If that had happened, if Rey had died instead of Ben, then actually that would have put this firmly into the more Christian capital R redemption, because then we would have had the good character dying to bring the bad character back into the light. And I thought that would have been way more moving to me personally, but there's a lot of reasons that it couldn't have happened that way. For one thing, they're definitely not going to kill off, hey, here's our girl Jedi that we're rebuilding the entire franchise on. They're not going to do that.
See, I think it would have been better if they had not killed either one. And I was that whole like, I'm going to give you my life force. No, I'm going to give you my life force. I'm like, oh,
well, why don't we just split the life force
already?
Yeah, let's split the life force, and we'll both be in a hospital for a week.
Yeah.
No, it's. I don't know.
I was so disappointed.
There are no half measures.
Yeah. But I was very disappointed with Ben's death at the end for several reasons. But I mean, I could see that they were trying to do a parallel and a mirror of Vader's story, his whole arc and his redemption and subsequent death. And like what you said, Bryan, redemption equals death. Atonement equals death. But hear me out. What about a Ben Skywalker who left Kylo Ren behind and lives? I mean, we see so many examples that it's its own trope. You've redeemed yourself, then you die. Yeah, because dying is easy. You don't have to face what you did. Living is much harder.
Death is lighter than a feather, but duty is heavier than a mountain.
Thank you for bringing the Wheel of Time reference. That's why I keep you around, my man. But a Ben Skywalker who lived and had to face the repercussions of his actions and seeks to atone daily could have made an incredible series dealing with concepts of remorse, forgiveness, trauma, and the repercussions of one's actions.
Yeah, I would totally read a series of novels.
Yeah, they used to have an Infinities comic line that would make a wonderful Infinities story.
Well, Marvel brought back What If, so fingers crossed.
Hey, Marvel, do some What If Star Wars right there.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we could probably do Star Wars for a good solid 3 hours. Let's talk about some of the others. There's one that really impressed me the first time around, and I watched it again another time around, which is Steven Universe. Have either of you? I think James, you haven't seen this. Bryan, have you?
On your recommendation, I watched it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been on my radar. I'll be honest with you, man. It's just not one that sincerely interests me.
Fair.
But please go right ahead.
You don't have to like everything that I do. That's not the basis of our friendship. One of the things that really drives this show is its conflict resolution. And there are a lot of characters that enter the show with their own history, trauma, allegiances. And the point is that they find ways to walk through it or they get stuck in their journey. And there's an entire episode's worth of content on that theme, but I don't think that we can explore that. The final season really throws a spotlight on a lot of this, though. The main galactic antagonists are these diamonds. They're alien sentient gems with a vast control of a huge empire, and there's the empire is struggling under their exacting control. And so the diamonds really are an analog for different facets of an abusive, controlling family. And the protagonist, Steven, ultimately what he wants to do is come face to face with them for the singular purpose of talking out their differences and trying to bring restoration to all the damage that's been brought on Earth. And I was really impressed that a show drove the narrative of a point of healing. What they wanted was a redemption of all that they had on Earth through reconciliation and restoration. And even the big bads of all of their earlier seasons were eventually brought out of the woodwork, and all of them were restored to something that was good. And I was really impressed with that was the fundamental purpose of that narrative.
Yeah, there were a number of stories in which they defeated their opposition, but they always felt the victories always felt a little hollow because, and I didn't realize this until you started talking about it, that the episodes that I really liked, the endings that I enjoyed were the ones where, yeah, they were bringing healing, they were restoring the relationships between the bad guys and themselves. And I didn't feel that sense of this story is finished until that happened with each of their adversaries.
So, yeah, I thought it was fantastic for that reason, but there's also kind of an unfortunate problem with this story. And while it is a little bit of what happens when Kylo gets back to the Resistance kind of ending, it was really fast. I mean, it was we've confronted the diamonds, and in the span of like maybe 45 minutes and an hour, there is, let's confront the big bads. We talked it out. We did the thing. And now we have a very happy, cheery, it's all positive, and they bring healing back to everything. But it was so fast because unfortunately the showrunner had an artificially limited number of episodes before they pulled the plug. And so it was really rushed. And this, I found out, really left a bad taste in the mouth of people who actually suffered under familial abuse. It's because the redemption came too quickly and too easily without showing the diamonds having to do a lot of work to repair the relationships that they damaged.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I felt that way too, that, man, this was really rushed at the end because they'd done such a good job of spinning out the mythology slowly, and you're just getting bits and pieces of it. So it kept me engaged for so long while I'd watch 5 or 6 episodes in a row because I was just getting little hints. And then all of a sudden, big info dump at the end, and we get all of it all at once. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense that, oh, hey, we've been canceled and we've got to try and wrap this story up Babylon 5 season 4 style.
Yeah. We'll probably hit on this just a little bit later on, but I think that there is kind of a narrative and a warning that we do like Steven because what he's trying to do is to bring healing through reconciliation. But I think there's also a warning in that this is not always possible. Don't take this as an allegory for your duty when it comes to abusive individuals in your path. You are not duty bound to change them. They have to make decisions for themselves. You can't make these things happen. So there is sometimes a narrative that gets put in front of people like, oh, if you do this, then the abusive person will change. That's up to them. That's not up to you. It's a great narrative, but also be careful when you are seeking out that narrative with individuals with abusive power. So just a little bit of a cautionary aspect of that.
Yeah, well, another story where we see redemption and atonement playing very prominently is Buffy the Vampire Slayer and its spinoff Angel. There are major themes running through both shows, and we get a good look at it from several different angles. And it gets with increasing sensitivity and complexity as the shows go on. Because we start off, we've got Angel, the classic atoner. He's a vampire whose his soul has been returned to him, so he's now good, and he's trying to make up for his past misdeeds. And then season 2 or 3,
2.
Yeah, season 2 introduces Spike, and I think it's at the middle of season 3 where something happens to him that he can't kill humans anymore. And this is the shallow heel face turn where Spike suddenly can't do his evil deeds, and so he reluctantly joins the good guys. And they and we get so used to him being there that sometimes he has to remind everyone that, hey, I'm evil. I'm going to stir up trouble because I am not, in fact, one of the good guys. And this continues right up until near the end of Buffy when we could go into quite a bit of that. And I think James wants to talk a bit about Spike too. But he makes his final choice and he sacrifices himself for everyone, which is, of course, short-lived because then he has to turn up on Angel because he's such a great character that they didn't want to throw him away.
And James Marsters was just happy for the paycheck.
Yes, he was.
I mean, you could say a lot about both Spike and Angel. Spike's redemption arc is the one that stands out more to me of the two. Don't get me wrong. I like Angel. I liked his character. I like how he was introduced. I liked the twist that came with him. Like, oh, he's helping Buffy, but oh no, he's a vampire. But wait, he's a vampire with a soul. But oh wait, he can turn evil again. Oh wait, he can be good again. It just flip-flop back and forth with that guy a lot. But when we meet him, he had his conversion moment a long time ago, like the 19th century, a long time ago. And note to all vampires, don't eat gypsies. But we get to witness Spikes over the course of a couple of seasons. And what I liked about it is that it wasn't immediate. It wasn't clean. And it wasn't something that they dealt with over the course of one 42-minute episode.
Mm-hmm.
What starts Spike's journey and drives his redemption is no one saw it coming. He falls in love with the Slayer. I think he's a great example of how love doesn't automatically make someone a better person.
Yes, thank you.
Love can be very selfish. It can be self-serving, and love can be very damaging. And now that love does drive him to do some noble acts. I'm thinking specifically about all the times that he protected, as you said, Bryan, he helped the Scooby gang out in various fights, protecting Buffy's mom in the big season 4 finale when, they're basically fighting a god. And Buffy tasks Spike with protecting her sister. And he comes face to face with a demon, which is much stronger than he is. And the demon's looking at him going, "What's up with you? You should be on my side. I don't sense a soul with you. You're a vampire. Why are you protecting that girl?" And Spike, he's had the tar beat out of him, but he looks the guy in the eyes and says, "I made a promise to a lady." I'm like, wow, you're a bit of a rat, but I respect that moment. But that same love sees him pay someone to create a sex robot replica of Buffy, and it also sees him attempting to rape her in one of the more traumatic moments of TV that I've ever seen, because of just how utterly, in a show about monsters and fantasy, angels and demons and vampire slayers, this moment felt very, very real world.
That was the most horrific part of the entire show, I think.
I agree with you. I mean, the two moments that stood out in that show as just slapped me across the face was that scene and the scene where Buffy walks in and she sees her mother dead on the couch. And it was nothing supernatural at all. It was just a medical issue. It happened off camera. It just was so sobering. But back to Spike. After this traumatic event, he realizes that while he may love Buffy, he's still a soulless evil monster. He's made a terrible mistake, and he's going to keep making them because that is his nature. And he realizes that until he changes his nature, he cannot change his actions.
That'll preach.
So you don't know what he goes to do. It's left as a mystery where he's going, what he's doing after the events of this episode. He's going through some type of trial, basically fighting to the death and going through these horrible ordeals. And you think, is he doing this to get more power? Why is he doing this? And when asked, he says, so Buffy can get what she deserves. And the being that is putting him through all this goes, very well, you will have what you desire, your soul. Spike's mistakes aren't done, as we see in the last season. But now, along with a desire to love, a desire to try to be better, he is actually filled with the need, the desire, the want to not just be a better man for Buffy, but just to try to be a better man, period.
Mm-hmm.
I will admit, I've only watched the first season of Angel, and he had not been introduced in it yet. So I don't know how his arc in that continues.
I know you saw at least the puppet episode.
I have seen the puppet episode, but that's a special case. Come on, you have to see the puppet episode.
I haven't seen the puppet episode.
You're a wee little puppet man.
Okay, now I guess I got to go look for the puppet episode.
There were some later notes in Angel, with Angel himself, that I think are worth mentioning at this point, that show that his work of atonement, because he spent 150 years trying to work off this karmic debt. And there are a couple of points where he just gets tired because the level of evil that's still in front of him and the level of evil that he's trying to make up for in his past overwhelm him. And he doesn't have to lose his soul. Nothing supernatural has to happen to him. He just beat down and tired of trying to do the right thing all the time. And he makes some really crappy decisions, drives his friends away from him. And he doesn't have the excuse of not having a soul. He's just turning into a bad person. And
I know plenty of people with souls who are jerks.
Right. And I think that was a really important line of stories in there that, you know what? It doesn't take being a vampire to be terrible. Mm-hmm. And doing the right thing is hard, and doing the right thing consistently is almost impossible.
Agreed.
And so I really appreciated some of the middle seasons of Angel tackling that issue too. And then of course you've got Harmony, who goes in the totally opposite direction, pretending to be good, but ultimately proving that evil is unrepentant.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder why his soul was located in his chest.
Well, I guess because Katra's, and that leads us to She-Ra, right?
And because it looks great on a TV screen. It's
Right.
great visual.
Chakras.
Yeah.
I was thinking chakras.
Right. Well, that's Avatar. We'll get there.
Wait, Katras? Wait a minute. So are you saying Spike is a Falcon?
Yes.
Okay. She-Ra, because I mean Katra. Like, we've got to talk about Katra. I was really, really excited to rewatch Katra's arc in preparation for this episode. I mean, it's such an off-sided arc for redemption stories.
Once again, I'm the odd man out. I have not seen any episodes of She-Ra. Mike, I know you've seen them all. You've talked about them on this podcast before. Brian, have you seen them?
Yeah. I watched She-Ra.
So it's safe to say that this is actually one that you guys both recommend.
Wow, that's a heck of a question. Because I gotta say, because the first season or two it's a kid's show with kind of a slog. Towards the end of season 2, things start ramping up, but what they do is they build a lot of good emotional arcs. If you're interested in watching emotional arcs, this is a good story.
Right. There's a lot that I love about Katra and her arcs, but this is one of those shallow turns that I was talking about earlier. I never really get the sense that Katra wants to atone for what she's done. I mean, she has realized how badly she's been treated. She's realized what it is that she really wants, that relationship with Adora. But other than joining the princesses, she doesn't really do anything that shows she's remorseful, does she?
I wanted to, this is the thing, is I put Katra in here and I really wanted to respond to this question with no, I'm going to rewatch this. I'm going to break it down. And I really wanted to be able to disagree with this, but I really think that you made a good point. People are switching allegiances all over this show. Like Entrapta, oh my gosh, whom I love, is switching back and forth all the time because she's like the chaotic neutral character. Like she has her.
I don't think she's ever even realized she's on a side.
Yeah, no, it's because that's why I say that she's perfect chaotic neutral, is because she's so focused on alien tech that everything else just fades out in the periphery. Shadow Weaver defects early from the Horde because she's out of options in the Horde and she wants to strike back. And well, the princesses can use her. And I think that the difference with Catra and the other examples is that her character does change as a result of her emotional journey. She does come to a moment where she realizes the things that she's done. And she is able to say to Adora in what she thinks is her, Darth Vader, I'm sacrificing myself moment, I'm sorry. Tell Adora I'm sorry. And I think that Catra's turn makes sense in terms of her emotional journey towards Adora, but it isn't coming to terms with all of the awful things that she did and making it a redemption story about trying to embrace the good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even in the very end of the show, spoilers, she's saying to Adora, you don't have to do this. Let's just run away. Because that's what Catra does. Like, if something is too big, she either finds a way out of it, around it, supersedes it, subverts it, or she runs away from it. And now she wants what she wants, which is Adora, and says, Adora, come with me. We can do this. And even in another towards the end of season 4, she's in a position with Double Trouble and shows Catra her demons. I mean, and it's fantastic because the show really is showing Catra's emotional problems. And so Double Trouble just shows her demons. But Catra, instead of following the hero's journey, Catra can't accept what she's seeing as the truth. And her emotional resistance is too high and she just denies it and she runs. And she tries to even establish old patterns, which never did serve her well, in a new environment. Yeah, I really think that the only thing that says that she understands what she's done is when she's talking to Glimmer, who is an imprisoned rebel queen. But I also do have to say that the episode where they start to have the switch is an episode named Save the Cat, which when they go in to rescue Catra, I'm like, okay, that's brilliant. But yeah, I probably said too much, but amazing emotional arc. But really the thing she cares about is Adora not doing the right thing for the right reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. We've talked about 2 incredible cartoons with redemption arcs that I have not seen. But one that I do have to bring up, which I'm sure you guys know all about, is, and my wife and daughter pointed this out to me, we really need to touch on just for a moment, the redemption arcs found with the characters of Nightmare Moon and Discord the Chaos Bringer in the cartoon My Little Pony.
Let's do it. Let's bring it.
I haven't watched quite enough of My Little Pony. I did watch the Nightmare Moon arc, but I haven't gotten to the point where Discord.
I was not expecting that answer from you, frankly.
Like,
I was keeping that all surface level.
Like, do you know what? Like, it's been ages since I've seen it, but seriously, when it was one of the first, not one of the first, but it was a kid's show that was going story driven with its first season. So yeah. I watched My Little Pony with my kids.
I have as well, and I found myself actually enjoying it at times. And I watched The Moon with my daughter, which was fun. And the only thing I'm going to say about it is the fact that the character Discord is, a reality-changing chaos bringer who is voiced by John Delancey. And it is completely, I have decided, headcanon in my mind that is actually Q. And the My Little Ponyverse is where he hangs out when he's not bothering Jean-Luc on the Enterprise. You cannot convince me otherwise.
Oh, the writers
accepted.
Yeah, the writers knew what they were doing.
Exactly. That is Q. It is 100% Q. Headcanon established. Now and forevermore.
All right.
So I don't have any kids that I watched it with. I only watched it because one of my friends is a storyboard artist on it.
That's a good reason. That is an excellent reason. Yeah. But moving on. Right. Maybe something that's not quite so cartoonish.
Slightly less cartoonish because
slightly less cartoonish. As
promised, I do have one movie series that shows redemption the way Jesus demonstrated it. Kind of. In Harry Potter, Rowling claims that Harry is the Christ figure in the stories, but I don't really see it that way because, he lays down his life to save the wizarding world, and I'm kind of disgusted myself that I just use wizarding as a verb. But anyway, actually, as an
I'll allow it. I think Michael, it's allowed here. Just go
You
with
can
it.
go around verbing all the nouns all as much as you want.
Yeah, but verbing
Exactly.
weirds language, as Calvin told us. Anyway, and he resurrects, but the people that he dies for are all of the heroic characters. I mean, he dies for Longbottom and Dumbledore and Hermione and Ron. If we're looking for a Redeemer archetype in the vein of Jesus, I think we find it in the characters of Dumbledore and Snape. Because Dumbledore didn't die for everybody at Hogwarts. He didn't even die for Harry, Ron, and Hermione. He gave up his life willingly for Draco.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
And
great point.
For someone who could be considered the least of these.
Right. And Snape sacrificed even more by carrying out the murder because he has to bear that burden of assassinating his friend, being thought to be the bad guy. And like Jesus, he said, greater love has no one than this, to lay down their life for their friends. But these two gave up everything to save their enemy. And that's us. I mean, we're the bad guys. And so if there's a redemption story in Harry Potter, it's those two characters, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that you make a fantastic point.
Brief. But that's all I had to say about Harry Potter.
I mean, well, that's the thing. It's brief, but it's there. I mean, what more do you want me to say?
Yeah.
You said it so well.
Well, especially because we're probably going to spend way too much time talking about the next one.
Wait,
Yes.
I thought there were no more left. Do we have anything more? Oh, wait. You're talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender because that is so awesome. Yes.
I'll be honest. When we brought up the subject of redemption stories, Zuko was the very first one I thought of. I mean, like, well, Zuko, obviously.
Actually, we had an episode where we talked briefly about the idea of a redemption story, and it took you several minutes to think of his name. And we talked about Pac-Man, and we distracted you for a while. But yes.
My daughter, as I was bringing up this podcast and the fact we're going to be talking about Zuko, she's like, oh, yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I told you it was good. I'm like, I was watching this show when I was still feeding you your bottle.
All right. We could probably go on an entire episode about why this show is amazing. But one of the things that I think is really incredible is that this show is being driven by the emotional beats of the antagonist. And I mean, that was also done by She-Ra with Catra. Like, her emotional beats are also driving that narrative. This becomes really explicit, especially in season 2. I mean, it's been implicit from the beginning. Like, Zuko is searching for redemption the entire show.
Yeah.
Like, he's an outcast because he showed an improper level of deference to his father and has been sent out on a hopeless and fool's errand to find the Avatar. And so he's hoping that if he chases and captures the Avatar, bringing Aang back is going to restore his honor and is going to give him his father's approval, and it's going to give him everything that he needs to redeem himself. But one of the things that happens is towards the end of season 2, he's confronted with what his destiny is, and whether it's one that is artificially imposed upon him with his broken relationship with his father, or a destiny of his own choosing. And his sister Azula makes that explicit. Like, Zuko has been seeking redemption, and she says, this is how you redeem yourself. And he does it. And he comes to the conclusion that what he did wound up being a really hollow victory.
Mm-hmm. You get to the end of season 2, the beginning of season 3, he has finally attained everything he's hoped for. He's been welcomed home as a hero. Everyone thinks the Avatar is dead. His father has welcomed him back. He's in everyone's good graces, and he is utterly, completely miserable. He finds that in his heart, this is nothing that he wanted. He feels empty and angry, and he doesn't know at what. And at this point in the show, when the end of season 2 came and he teamed up with his sister, I was about to write him off. I really was. I felt actual anger at a cartoon character, which to me is a testament to the writing of this show,
right?
And the performance of the character. Then when it shows that he's not living in triumph, he's living in misery. It takes such a hard journey of self-discovery and of truly looking at himself to realize I finally have everything I wanted, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
Now he has to do the unthinkable.
I mean, I think that's kind of the thing, is that's what makes this probably the most exemplary redemption story, because he has to reject everything his ill deeds have granted him. He has to leave his comforts of royalty. A little bit later, he actually has to relearn the source of his firebending. And he has to have the Ben Kylo moment that I wanted to see, the coming back to camp moment with the Avatar and his gang. And
oh my gosh,
it does not go amazing.
Hi, Zuko here. I was bad, but I'm good now.
You think that we're just going to turn around and trust you after everything? Well, and that was really kind of an amazing thing, that they don't trust him. And even after he apologizes, and this is the thing, is that I was really impressed with the writing. They had him apologize for specific things that he had done wrong. He owned how he personally harmed the other members of the party. And
that's something that does not happen in TV.
No,
yeah.
It's something that people need to see more often, that you mess up, okay, don't just try to act better. You need to do your best to fix what happened.
Yeah.
You need to make amends.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes there is no making amends, but that doesn't mean that people shouldn't try.
Well, and that's the thing, is that even Katara doesn't say, do you know what? Thank you for apologizing. I forgive you. It's more like, thank you for apologizing. I don't forgive you. And I know that you've struggled with doing the right thing before. And if you set one toe out of line, if I think you're going to hurt Aang, she basically says, I'm going to put you in the ground. I mean, she doesn't say that. It's pretty explicit. It's the closest
close.
Yeah. For a kid show,
there's no mistaking what she means.
Oh yeah, like, I'm going to take care of your moral confusion in a permanent way, and by permanent I mean it's because you won't be breathing anymore, and by breathing anymore I mean.
I forget. At this point, had she learned bloodbending yet?
Yes, she had.
Yeah.
And the thing is also, he doesn't follow like a linear trajectory of good, because he says, "Oh, yeah, I found the guy who killed your mom. You want to go meet up with the guy?" And he's fully expecting that she'll end him. And in the end, she has to come to terms with her own demons. But in working through those demons, she also says, "Well, okay, I can't live there. I can't do awful things because it doesn't help me, but it does help me forgive you," which I thought was really cool.
It's interesting how he also becomes a vehicle in which the other characters deal with some of their own emotional baggage. He goes on a mission with Aang to discover why he's having trouble with firebending, but also they discover the original firebending masters and gaining a new level of appreciation and skill that neither one thought that they would ever find. As he goes with Katara to find the man who she believed to have killed her mother, and she has to deal with her own issue and the ghosts of the past. He goes with Sokka on a rescue mission to a firebending prison to try to find his father, who we feel like Sokka has been chasing after throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
And at one point, the group is getting ready to split up, and Toph goes, "No, it is my turn to go on this mission of self-discovery with him. All of you have had your little missions. Now it's my turn."
One of the things that I do have to credit the show is it is really emotionally smart. And one of the things that the vice president of the school that I work for loves the show, and wrote a psychoanalytic examination of Zuko's journey, which is not, it's not redemption focused, but I think it's worth putting in the show notes. Side note, I know that this gave you a Malwarebytes claim. We got that fixed,
Good.
just so you know. And super thank you for pointing that out, because my last scan before that, like a week ago, turned up clean. That one turned up dirty.
Yeah, let's make sure that our podcast doesn't give our listeners problems.
At least not those kinds of problems.
Yes.
Yeah. What it turned out the malware was doing was selling drugs on our website. So, I mean, not actually, mailing the drugs, but once you paid for the drugs, the drug sellers would just say, LOL, and keep your credit card number. But anyway.
Right, because everybody's going to buy their pharmaceuticals on a college Department of Psychology website for some reason.
Well, what the purpose of that was not actually to get people to buy the drugs off of our website, but it was to increase their SEO standings.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway,
and besides, Bryan, everyone knows you buy them in the basement of the psychology department. That's right. The other psychology student. Come on.
I wanted to bring up one other element in Zuko's story that I think is really important, and that's he had a model showing him the steps that he needed to take, because Iroh had been through this same experience already. He is a character who has gone through this path of redemption.
Yeah.
He's made up for the things that he's done, and he's offering his wisdom to his nephew. Zuko's not doing this on his own. He has support from his uncle. He has the model. And importantly, Iroh knows when to step away, because it's really important that Zuko takes that last step on his own and realizes that he has the strength to take the last steps of the journey toward where he needs to be. Mm-hmm. And I was a little frustrated when suddenly Iroh is just given up on him. Like, dude, all of this time you have been in his corner the whole time, and now you're gonna turn your back on him. And it took watching how things played out and realizing, wow, he's even wiser than I had given him credit for. I was very impressed.
Everybody needs an Uncle Iroh in their life. All of us do. And we talked a lot about father figures in the last episode. Speaking of on the path to redemption, I just want to talk about that interaction between Zuko and Iroh. Zuko's turned his back on the Fire Nation. He's been helping the Avatar. Where in the last few episodes, Iroh has, like a boss, broken out of prison. And right before the big battle at the end, they encounter each other. And Zuko he's feeling nothing but shame and sorrow. And he's trying to find the words to apologize to his uncle. And he's stuttering over it. He can't get it out. And all Iroh does is turn around, grab him, and pull him into an embrace. And just holds him tight. I remember the lines. Zuko asks, "How can you forgive me? How can you forgive me so easily?" And Iroh says, "I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you'd lost your way."
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I need a minute. No, but really, I think that was such an emotionally impactful scene.
Sometimes the path to redemption needs a hand. It needs a bit of help.
I mean,
it always needs help.
And Iroh provided that help in so many ways. I mean, where would Zuko have been without Iroh?
I mean, if you think that the big R redemption happens without help, then your theology is so messed up.
Yes.
You're so right.
Well,
But
no, it
just
does
like
happen
Star Wars.
without help. It's just you're not the active agent in that.
So just like with Star Wars, we could spend 3 episodes talking about the powerful messages in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
So that's what you heard, folks. This is part 1 of 3 for the Geek Out Arms podcast on Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Part 1 of 6, because we've got 3 to do for Star Wars also.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
yes.
fair enough.
That should get us through till 2023.
Yeah.
Have you guys noticed how most of these redemptive arcs and these characters we talked about are all from kid shows?
Yeah, that got me and my friend Sydney talking and thinking, because sometimes I talk to her about what's coming up on the show because she's amazing. And one of the questions is it just that adults have become too jaded and cynical to really believe that people who do so much harm can really change?
Yeah, we're the worst.
Well, maybe. I don't think there's a complete lack of redemption stories in fiction for grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say in adult fiction, but that has a slightly different connotation.
Grown-up fiction.
Grown-up fiction.
Yeah.
You've got characters like Dalinar Kholin, if you've read the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, and Teal'c in Stargate SG-1. And these are good examples of people who are living in the consequences of their past. They're the Kylo Ren, the Ben Solo that we wanted to see, but didn't get to. The MCU has some good examples, my favorite of which is Natasha giving her life to save Hawkeye. And we could get into it with that one, I'm sure.
Oh, man. It's like, why did you kill the interesting character? Sorry.
Because she was not the one who needed redeemed.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Side note, have you guys seen the Black Widow movie?
Yes.
Yes.
It was great.
That's not
It
where
was
your
great.
olfactory nerve
And
is. That's not where your olfactory nerve is. The whole thing falls apart.
Anyway, it does a great job of setting up the sacrifice. But speaking of examples in adult-oriented media, we've established that I'm a music theater geek. And I have to bring up the character of Jean Valjean from Les Miserables.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This is a man who, and I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. I mean, he...
Look at the book.
Don't you laugh at me. I know, it is
rhythms.
funny. Yeah. But in a nutshell, this is a man who was imprisoned for 20 years for the horrible, detestable crime of stealing a loaf of bread. And he was put into one of the worst prisons on earth outside of Russia. He's released as a hardened and embittered man.
Yeah, that prison made him into something he wasn't before.
Exactly. And when we first see him, he's got his yellow ticket of leave, and he realizes, I have no life ahead of me. I'm always going to be a criminal, so why not act like it? And he even goes as far as to rob a priest who showed him kindness, took him in, gave him a place to sleep, and fed him. And it is, in fact, that priest who starts Valjean on his redemptive track. Valjean steals silver from the priest, leaves, immediately gets caught by the police. Police bring him back, and the priest says, no, I gave him that silver. Officers, thank you very much. In fact, my friend, you should have taken the candlesticks as well. And after the police leave, he does what Valjean never imagined would happen. Valjean thought his life was over. Instead, it was just beginning, because this priest forgives him, challenges him. In my favorite line from the musical, I had the privilege of seeing this on Broadway. The priest is singing these incredible lines. It's very powerful, thick with emotion. The verse ends with, I have bought your soul for God. It's one of my favorite lines in all of history. It may not be, what you want to tell people is that, oh yeah, I can buy your soul, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not
it's theater, not theology books. So
exactly, it's theater, but not theology book.
And Ashley's just cringing, I know.
But the message is there because it puts Valjean at a crossroads, and those crossroads are something that every character we've talked about has encountered. Does he continue down this path of bitterness and grief that he's experienced over the past 2 decades, or does he accept that finally, for the first time, possibly in his life, he has been shown grace and mercy? And I don't think that those are talked about enough in redemption stories, the concepts of grace and mercy. And in this case, Valjean is shown both of these by the priest. First, he's shown mercy in the fact that he doesn't tell the police, yep, this guy's a thief, take him away. That'd have been a really quick musical, and I really would have been bitter about the price I paid for those tickets if it ended like that. Roll credits. So he's shown mercy, but beyond that, he's shown grace. He is given the candlesticks. So not only am I giving you these, I am forgiving you. And I am telling you, take these, make a better life for yourself. Be a better man. Start anew. And Valjean, in the song that comes next, he realizes what he's become. He realizes what's been shown to him. And in a very powerful moment, he accepts them. He accepts the mercy and the grace that was shown to him. And he lets them change his story as only they can. And I looked at it as not only a great redemption story, but it also has a lot of parallels with being a salvation story.
I think especially poignant on that is that the larger narrative of the book, this isn't a single action that's one and done. Valjean has to work on his life for the duration of his life. This isn't I'm good, I have that in the bank, and I can relax. He is working on himself in several ways at several key junctures in his life. And it is a lifelong story.
Yeah, redemption is a continual process, but that process is one that he takes other people with him because of his acceptance of grace and mercy, and because of his continually trying to live that better life. He redeems Fantine by saving her daughter once again, once that grace and mercy was shown to him, he accepts it, he receives it, he accepts it, and he passes it on. This may or may not be a theme that I touch on in the devotional I wrote for Thy Kingdom Come.
What was the name of that book again?
Thy Geekdom Come, Volume 2.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
By Mythos and Ink Press.
And where can we buy that?
On mythosandink.com or on Amazon.
All right, just checking. I forgot.
Does that wrap it up for us on this?
I mean, there's so many more that we could talk about, but I don't know if anyone wants to listen to us for 3 solid hours.
You don't want to edit it for...
If it's a 3-hour-long show, that means we probably were talking for 5.
Yeah.
I want to listen to you guys for 3.5 hours. Oh, we'll talk after the show. That's fine. That's fine.
Any final thoughts?
I mean, too many, but I think that we're, do you know what? I will say this because we're talking about Valjean's life, last little stinger. You talk about the ongoing process in his life. I think it is interesting that in one of his later letters, the Apostle Paul refers to the salvation journey as we who are being saved. And so he does not refer to it, at least in that book, in that tense, as a completed thing. But if we talk about our own redemption story, it is a story that is continually lived on and lived forward. And I think that we can go a lot of places there. I just preached from James. So if you want to talk about, being doers of the word, we can do that. But we're not going to do that right now.
Yeah. One final thought I want to give is one major reason that redemption stories resound so deeply with us is that many points in our lives, we all feel like we have messed up. We have done wrong. We have fallen short. And we're hoping to find our own redemption. We want to atone. We want to be forgiven. Another quick point in media that really drove that home to me was in one of the episodes of Matt Smith's run of Doctor Who. He got really excited that he got a message from another Time Lord. I found one, and it's one of the good ones. And he's trying to track down where the signal came from. And his companion, Amy, is like, wait a minute. Why are you so keen on finding other people? You told me what happened. You told me about the Time War. You're not seeking a friend. You're looking for forgiveness. And that brought the doctor up short. After a moment of silence, he looked at her and said, aren't we all? And I killed it.
No, I think that there's a moment between killing it and having a pregnant pause. I was like, maybe you should just go back and strike the stuff I said about we who are being saved and let that be the final thought without my thought getting in the way. But, listen to it in the end.
I liked your thought, too.
Okay.
Actually, I was thinking that mine was too verbose.
No, I just wanted to say that episode was written by Neil Gaiman, and that makes me happy.
Are you serious? Oh, my gosh.
It's one of the best episodes in the entire series. If anyone disagrees with me, I will fight them.
This is a hill to die on.
Yes, it is.
I like Don't Blink, but...
Another great one. But once again, we could go for 5 hours on Doctor Who. We need to wrap the show up.
All right. Then why don't we go to the zombie apocalypse strategy of the week? And this week has absolutely nothing to do with redeeming zombies because I'm just not going to cheapen it. I will cheapen lots of things, but even I have my limits. This week, the zombie apocalypse strategy of the week is let something else bite you first. And if you really think about it, if you get bitten by a zombie, you're a zombie like all the time. If you get bitten by, a werewolf, you only have to worry about that once a month. So, I mean, the math checks out. Just get bitten by the werewolf first.
So we're going with the underworld prevention method. Gotcha.
Oh, no. Okay, take the zombies.
No, because if that works, then if they introduce zombies, then that means somewhere out there's going to be a vampire werewolf zombie hybrid.
Oh, quiet. Underworld will hear you.
Well, on the plus side, if I employ that strategy, we'll finally find out the truth about the silver fillings.
Oh my gosh, that would be the joy. No, I killed it.
If they ever did make a vampire zombie werewolf movie, I'm fairly sure that it will star Bruce Campbell.
Well, it better.
Okay, now I'm
Yes.
in.
now I'm in.
Wait, can we get Bruce Campbell and David Harbour? I want to see them in the same movie.
I'm sorry, I don't know who that is.
David Harbour was Hopper in Stranger Things.
Oh, well, yes. Okay, yes.
Yeah. And
then
may
I
say,
want that.
killed it as Natasha's
Guardian.
dad in Black Widow.
He was so good.
Well, I think that is going to wrap it up this episode. I want to thank you all for listening in. Make sure you check us out online at geekatarms.com, at facebook.com/geekatarms. Mike, what's our Twitter?
We are Arms Geek on Twitter.
Download us through iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Give us a like. Leave us a review if you would, please. It really helps out the show. And, of course, from Bryan, Mike, and James, be safe, be blessed, and be geeky.
And Ron Perlman, he should be in that movie too.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the perfect closer. No, it's just like...
Thanks for listening to Geek at Arms. Music for this podcast was provided by Incompetech.com. For more, check us out at Facebook.com/Geek at Arms. Give us a like and maybe even subscribe to us on iTunes. That would be awesome.